What's up, Everything Medicare Podcast Nation? This is Christian Brindle here, and thank you for joining me on another episode of the Everything Medicare Podcast. We're getting close to 100 episodes, and today I have a very, very special guest here with me today. I have John Billetdoux here with me, and we're going to be talking to him. John is let me tell you a little bit about John. John started out doing work with the Philadelphia Police Department, spent about 18 years in the hotel sales industry, but some changes caused him to go out of that industry, and he ended up going through a couple of different jobs over a portion of years. John found the insurance industry, and with some encouragement from his wife, I can appreciate that because my wife has encouraged me to not quit the insurance industry multiple times over the years. But he found the insurance industry, and he quickly, realized that he enjoyed it. He valued helping others and educating people, which I appreciate. He has been in the industry now for 6 years. He's become a top producing agent, attended top producer trips, and as a result, as of January, he actually started up his own agency. So John, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Hey, the pleasure's all mine. John, let's start out by introducing you a little bit to the audience. Talk a little bit about your story and what about the insurance industry drew you to it, do you think?
Okay. Well, initially growing up, my intention was that I wanted to be a state trooper. But at a younger age, I suffered some injuries which prevented that from happening. I did spend a few years working in Philadelphia, got out of that and ended up getting into hotels. I was in hotel sales for approximately 18 years. Eventually climbed my way to the top of the ladder. But what you find in hotels is that the higher you get on the pay scale, when things go south, you're among the first to go. So I lost 2 jobs in 3 years because I was always becoming the first one to be cut because of the fact I had the higher salary. I was approached by an agency not far from where I live and had been approached by them over the course of several years, but not really knowing much about the industry. I was afraid. When I had lost my second job over the course of 3 years, my wife said, look, why don't you just give this a chance? I got your back. So I got into this industry, and it's been great so far. I'm in my 6th year now. First year as a solo agency, and that has been quite an experience, but it's been fun so far.
Very cool. Very cool. I know what you mean. When I started in this business, I kind of have a similar story to, I know Justin Brock, who we've had on the podcast, guys like Cody Askins, who they're second generation insurance agents. They started out working with their dads, and so did I.
My grandfather was an agent. My grandfather actually owned his own agency long before I was even born.
It helps. Like, did you work with him when you started out at all?
No, I did not. Unfortunately, my grandfather passed before I got into this industry. But we were both being in sales. One of the things that my grandfather always preached was doing the right thing, and that people are going to look to you do the right thing. And, people don't have the knowledge of the products that you have. So they're going to look to you, and you need to be honest with them because the customer is always more important than you are. Always put their needs before you put your own. And so I've always kind of lived by that mantra, especially with the fact that I now have children and I want them to also feel that way. The customer is always first. Their needs always come before yours.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with you. That's been our approach starting out here, and through our years of experience. And you don't last 6 years or more. I mean, you always hear the statistics. Insurance agents, 90+% of them are out of the business in a 3-year period. The reason for that is because they don't take care of their clients. I think that's probably the number one reason.
I believe that totally.
And so, you don't last longer than 3 years if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, and so I agree with you wholeheartedly. John, I got a question for you with AEP around the corner. So I got an AEP question, okay? So what advice would you give someone that's listening that might be on Medicare that's just getting hammered with advertisements, phone calls, the works? What advice would you give for somebody on, knowing what to do as far as making a good decision during the enrollment period?
Well, you definitely want to, think about why these folks are sending you these advertisements. Their objective is to convince you that the product or whatever it is that they're trying to pitch to you is better than what you already have. This is why it's paramount that you understand the coverage that you have and how it works. I have, on many occasions, met with customers who did not know what they had. And so they were actually potentially going into a situation that may have been worse than they were already in. And so in situations like that, I say, I can't, in good conscience, help you because the situation that you're in right now is far better than any situation that I could put you in. And this often happens with people who have significant health issues. A lot of these marketing techniques can be very appealing and very misleading. So it's very important that you have a broker or someone that you can trust who isn't necessarily going to tell you what you want to hear, but tell you what you need to hear. And I tell that to all my customers. My job is not to tell you what you want to hear. So you may hear some things from me that you're not going to like, but you can rest assured that I am going to be completely 100% honest with you and give you the straight up, and that's just how I am because I would want somebody to do that to me. And I can't stress enough the importance of understanding your coverage and knowing exactly what it does and exactly what it does not do. And this is an agent's job to inform you of that. A good agent is going to tell you that.
Absolutely. I mean, I've always said over the years, a good agent puts your needs before his.
Amen.
A good agent will recommend a product where he makes, a lower commission if it means it's the best thing for you, and so I couldn't agree with you.
I've walked out of houses with no commission. I have walked out of houses empty-handed because my primary goal, again, is not to go into somebody's house and just sell them something. I've walked into houses where people had a very good plan and they had serious health issues. And for that reason, I have told them, you need to stay right where you're at. Mm-hmm. And even though I'm not making any money on this deal and I'm not making any commission, it's the thing to do. It could just as easily be my mother, aunt, or my uncle. And I would have a problem if somebody went in to meet with them and sold them something that they didn't necessarily need and put them in a worse position than they were in when the person first came in the house. So I have no problem walking out of a house empty-handed as long as I know at the end of the day that I did the right thing.
Well, agreed. I mean, I think that's the right approach. The approach should be, if you're ever replacing a policy, it should always be to the benefit of the beneficiary. And so I agree with you completely. John, let me shift gears to this, though. What value would you say that you particularly as an agent add to your client's situation that most other agents don't do? If you had to say something that makes you stand out, what would you say that would be?
I've been told that I am honest to a fault. And I take that as a compliment. And like I said, I will be honest with my customers. They know that they call me. And actually, I've had many customers tell me what they like the most about me is my success. They can send me a text or a phone call or an email on a Saturday at 11 o'clock in the morning or 9 o'clock at night, and I'm going to get right on. I've actually had text message and conversation with people at 11 o'clock because they weren't sure what the policy did and they wanted to know if they're covered for this or they're covered for that. And accessibility, it's all about putting the needs before your own. And it's all being upfront and honest. We are educators as at it. I'm not here to sell something to somebody. A lot of people, when you call them, are like, oh, you're going to try to sell me something. No, I'm going to try to educate you so that you can walk away from this experience feeling much more educated than you were before we met. And that includes knowing how your policy works, knowing what it is and what it is. I'm going to be straight with my customers and say, look, I understand some things you need to know that the advertisements are not going to tell you. And that's what I think is one of the biggest values bring people.
Well, I agree with you. I think, availability, the best ability is availability. And I think the clients don't get that with a lot of agents. It's a weak callback time, if any callback. And, I think, availability is the best ability. And I think the integrity part is huge, so it's always good to hear when an agent has that approach when working with the beneficiaries.
What's up, everybody? This is actually Randy W. Hall, Mr. Nice Guy Medicare Advisor, not Christian Brindle, your esteemed host. I'm here to tell you about my Medicare agency, Mr. Nice Guy Medicare Advisor, based here in Tennessee. For the past 10 years, I've been helping Medicare beneficiaries just like you in Tennessee and Kentucky maximize their Medicare. If you're a regular listener of this podcast, you know Christian always encourages you to deal with a broker in your state who sells all the different plans and will give you not just a quote, but also advise you and educate you in a way that is simple to understand. We know how confusing and overwhelming the whole process can be. We do it all for folks on Medicare, from supplements to Advantage plans, Part D, cancer products, hospital indemnities, and more. So if you want to get a free quote or a consultation, I urge you to call 615-578-5174. Again, that's area code 615-578-5174. Or for more information, you can visit my website and read all about me at MrNiceGuyMedicareAdvisor.com. That's all one word, MrNiceGuyMedicareAdvisor.com. And again, why deal with a jerk when you can deal with a nice guy?
Let me transition over to this, John. Is there a particular hole that you see left exposed in someone's coverage that you run into frequently that maybe could be easily avoided?
Well, I think one of the problems I run into most frequent is people not under health coverage. An example of this, say a Med Advantage plan, and they have significant health issues, and they start significant days and out-of-pocket expenses, and then they call and they say, "Hey, look, I got this plan, and I thought Medicare was supposed to be and getting all bills and co-pays, and it's because they're in them." And at that point, puts us in a different, because usually we're coming in after they've already signed up for something, or about being informed. It's all about being educated. And you can sit at somebody's table and they can say, "Oh yeah, I understand it, no problem, have a nice day." And then they're going to call you 2 months later and be like, "Oh, wait a minute, I'm not quite sure. Does this happen like this, or does this cover that, or does this cover the other thing? I thought that it was supposed to cover this." In reality, it does not cover such and such. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm,
I run
absolutely.
into that a lot. And it's unfortunate, and we do the best we can. We try to keep people informed. I'm constantly running articles on my website so that people can stay updated and stay abreast of things. But, you're always going to have questions, and there's always going to be something that someone doesn't understand. Always.
Absolutely. And I think the lack of understanding is the real tragedy here.
Oh, yeah.
I think you probably would agree with me on that. And,
yes, sir.
I think, the more content us as agents can put out for the beneficiary, the better.
I think also people often don't realize the consequences of their actions when dealing with Medicare. Not all mistakes are correctable. And I have had several situations where people made changes or did certain things or did not do certain things, and then they call us and they want to go back and fix it, and maybe they have a health issue. And so maybe them trying to change their plan, they're going to be, and they do get declined because of a health issue. And then they say, "Oh, well, nobody told me this, nobody told me that, nobody told me I couldn't do it." Doesn't matter. It's too late now. Unfortunately, you made a mistake and they're not always correctable. I've had that happen many times.
Yeah, absolutely. And not all mistakes are created equal as well.
Absolutely true. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't agree with you more on that. I think that, if people, I mean, I'm sure this is one thing that you run into quite frequently. I think that one of the most common things that we see is someone not taking a drug plan if they don't take any prescriptions. And then they end up needing it down the road, and then they got that beautiful lifelong drug penalty,
Yep. I've had that many times.
And that's unfortunate. I think that's tragic for someone that just didn't have the education, that they have to deal with that for life,
Yeah. I agree. I've run into that many times. And then organizations such as PAD, which we have here in New Jersey, or PACE, which helps people with their drug costs. I continually run into customers that don't even know that exists.
Yeah.
So I don't, these people who really need those programs apparently are not able to find out that they exist. And then when I tell them about it, they're like, well, I never heard of that. I never even knew that existed, which is frustrating because you want to help these people, and they don't even know half of the programs that are out there to help them.
Yeah. Well, but that's why we do podcasts like this, to make a difference.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
John, let me shift gears over to this. Misconceptions about Medicare. You run into people all the time, as do I, that are, getting onto Medicare, or they've already been on Medicare, and there's always so much confusion, but misconceptions. They believe one thing about Medicare when it's really the opposite. What would you say are some of the biggest misconceptions that you consistently run into?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of them. One of them is mainly that Medicare is going to pay everything. That Medicare is just going to foot the bill for whatever it is you have done. And I can't tell you how many people call me and they're like, oh, I thought Medicare was supposed to cover this. And Medicare isn't designed to cover 100%. That's not what it was created for. There's always going to be that 20% on the back end that's out there, and you have to find a way to eliminate that 20%, or you could be running into some significant out-of-pocket costs. Another misconception that I frequently run into is people thinking that they can just do whatever they want whenever they choose and just move plans as often as they want. And that's not the case. I've had people several times who, in fact, I had a lady recently where she basically she had signed up for a supplement and decided to go back to work and wanted to be covered by the work plan. And I advised her, if you do that, don't drop your supplement, because if you should try to come back into the supplement later down the road, they're going to be allowed to ask you health questions. And she was of the mindset, oh, well, I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. I'll worry about that later. It's no big deal. I'm healthy. A couple of years go by. She quits the work plan. Now she tries to go back into the supplement. She fails the health questions. Now she's over a barrel. And of course, some of these people are going to listen to you and some of them are not. And I hate to say I told you so, but that's what happens. And again, I say that because I do my seminars and I always tell people, don't think that you can just come and go as you freely choose. That's not how it works. You get that 6-month free period when you first take your Medicare supplement. But once that's come and gone, then should you try to make any changes, they can ask you whatever they want. And if they don't like the answers, they're either going to say no thank you, or you're going to end up paying significantly higher premiums because of whatever health issues you might have. So it's not a free pass. You know what I mean? And I run into that a lot.
Absolutely. On that particular person, did she have a plan G? Was that the situation?
She had a G, and she dropped it to go back onto the work plan. And then she worked for a couple of years, and then she decided to come off the work plan. And then, of course, as you know, she had to pass the health questions.
Which she couldn't do.
She failed for like 4 or 5 different reasons. And so they had her over a barrel. I mean, she had guaranteed issue protection. But, you're basically allowing the insurance company to basically call the shots when that happens.
And probably not the plan she originally wanted.
No. No.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I've seen
Yeah,
that.
and I
I've
felt
seen
really
that.
bad for the lady because I really liked her.
Yeah,
I like all my customers, you
of
know what I
course.
mean?
Yeah,
But as somebody in this industry, I kind of take it personal when I can't help somebody. You know
of
what I
course.
mean? That really bothers me. It's not like I just walk away and say, oh, well, stinks to be them. I really take it personal when I can't help somebody. And especially when I told them not to do something and they did
Hmm.
it anyway. And then they ended up exactly where I told them they were going to end up,
Yeah,
And so that kind of bothers me.
I understood. Understood. I mean, like, people like us, John. This is like, where Picasso paints. This is our painting. This
Exactly.
is what we do.
Yes,
And we
sir.
want to
Yes,
we want to
sir.
do it right. We want to make sure
Mhm.
that when we're setting somebody up for something, it's going to be a masterpiece, if you will.
Yeah.
So I completely understand how you feel on that. I've felt that many a times myself. Let's talk about Medicare supplements for a minute.
Okay.
Obviously, there's no clear-cut best Medicare supplement plan for someone on Medicare. Obviously, it's going to depend on the market and the person's situation. But if you had to pick one of the Medicare supplement plans that you lean towards more than the others, which one would you pick and why?
The G plan. I've always been a G plan fan, even before we knew that the F was being discontinued. Um, I like the G plan, and the reason is because the benefits are essentially exactly the same as an F plan. So you can have an F plan, and I can have a G. Benefits wise, we're entitled to all the exact same things. Only difference between the G and the F is that with that G, I'm going to have to pay that yearly Part B deductible, which as we speak now is the first $185 a year. My benefits are exactly the same as yours, and my premium with that G plan is probably going to be significantly less than yours, even with that 185 factored into the equation. So for that reason, I've always been a huge fan of the G.
As am I. As am I. I've always been going back to 2014. At that point, and from what I remember, all the agents in this area anyway, before we were working out of state, all the agents in this area, they were still on the Plan F bandwagon and they didn't get it. They didn't
Now,
quite
there's a lot of
understand.
people out there that still don't get it.
I know. They're missing out because it's, not only is it save you money on the front end, rate increases, statistically speaking, have shown to be much lower on the G as opposed to the Fs because the Fs have been around so much longer. So I'm with you on that one. Okay, so let's transition and talk a little bit about agents again for a second.
Mm-hmm.
For people that are in states that maybe you and I aren't licensed with, we might not be able to help them this coming enrollment period. What should a person expect out of their agent? And how can someone know if their agent is taking care of them properly?
Well, one thing I would say is honesty. Honesty is everything. I think a lot of times your instincts are gonna tell you whether or not this person's being honest with me or not, or if I'm just a number to them. You know what I mean? I don't ever want my customers to feel like they're just a number, just as I never want to feel like a number when I'm going out buying something. I want to, I try to have that personal touch. Back when I was in hotels, one of the things my customers always told me was that you're not a stuffed shirt. You ask me how my kids are. You ask me how my son did on his baseball game or my daughter did on a recital. These are people that you can tell are a little bit more vested in the relationship than somebody who just calls you and says, hey, you want to buy life insurance? You know what I mean? These are people who genuinely care about you and the welfare of both you and your family. You know what I mean? Those are the type of people that I want to do business with, whether I'm buying a car or refinancing my house or whatever. People that care about me and have my personal best interests in mind. And that's the person that I try to be. And I think if you're in one of the states that we don't cover, that's what you probably want to look for. Somebody who's calling you 3 times a day to say, hey, you want to buy such and such? That's not my kind of person. You know what I mean? Because I've always been of the mindset, you know what, you may not need me this month, and you may not need me in 5 months, and you may not need me in 8 months, but maybe a year from now, you might be thinking, oh, hey, you know what? I got to call that guy John because I need whatever. So, you never burn a bridge as well, because there's a lot. I've been at car dealers and I've been at places like that where you're like, hey, you know what? I'm not buying today. And they're like, get lost, get out of my sight. I would never want to be that guy. And I think a lot of agents might be like that too. Like, oh, well, you don't want to buy? Well, then, leave me alone. I don't want to talk to you. It's not what it's about, man. A lot of us got into this industry because we genuinely care about people and we want to help people. I try to leave people in a better condition when I leave them than when I initially found them. And if that means I don't, then so, but at least telling them why we're in a good, there's really not you're possibly be in, and any for you could potentially jeopardize that. It's about honesty. Find an agent that's going to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want. And that's probably somebody that I would stick with.
Hey, well, I like that. I mean, we've all had that experience, go to a car dealership and you're looking at a car and you're put through the runaround or, and we've all had that experience of feeling like just another number, so I agree with you completely. That's not what we should have our clients go through. All righty. So let me switch gears to this, John. So last question, and then we'll wrap this up. This question is something I've asked everybody that's come on the podcast to talk about Medicare, and it's kind of a polarizing question, so forgive me on that. And obviously, there's no clear-cut answer. It's going to depend on a person's situation and, yada, 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 political correct answer and everything like that. But if you had to lean one way or the other when it comes to Medigaps, Medicare supplements, or Medicare Advantage, which way would you lean and why?
For me, and again, it's like you said, it's not a one-size-fits-all type of thing. Every situation is different, and I don't want people who may be interested in one thinking that, oh, John said this is bad. That's not the case at all. For me, I'm all about Medicare just because I think, God forbid, and I've had customers that have had significant illnesses. For instance, I had a customer who had cancer, and when I signed him up, I wasn't sure which way to go, Med Advantage or supplement. And I told him, like, look, you have cancer in your background. If that cancer comes back, your out-of-pocket expenses with a Med Advantage plan could be pretty significant. And thank God he listened to me. And he was the first customer that I ever lost, unfortunately. And his wife actually called me after the fact to tell me that, look, we wanted to thank you because we had the plan G and the cancer did in fact come back and he was laid up for a long time and it pretty much covered everything. We walked away without any out-of-pocket expenses after he passed because of that plan G covering everything. And for me, that's the reason why I do this. You know what I mean? Because I made a difference in their life. You know what I mean? I made a difference in their, in that man and that customer's life when, that cancer did come back. And everybody knows what cancer is and everybody knows what cancer's about. And for me to think that I played a major part in their ability to navigate through that in terms of their financial expenses is something that I'm extremely proud of. You know what I mean? Because that's why I do this. It's why I get up in the morning. It's why I do what I do every day, because it's the hope that I can make a difference in educating somebody so that they don't have to go through those type of ghastly expenses that are associated with a worst case scenario such as cancer. You know what I mean?
Yep, 100%.
So for me, it's supplements all day. And I'm not saying Med Advantage plans are bad, because for a lot of people, they are the right option. But given the two, I would take a supplement all day long. And we do both. I mean, we do Med Advantage and we do supplements. And there are some people where it's a no-brainer where, hey, you know what? But I tell people when I meet with them, like, look, you need to realize what this is. Because I've had people call and say, yeah, I have this supplement plan and, I have this and I have that. And then you don't have a supplement plan. You have a Med Advantage plan. They are not the same thing. They are two completely different animals. You need to be aware of that.
Agreed completely. I've always said that I think for people on Medicare, I think 70% of the difficulty for people is determining whether they want to go supplement or Med Advantage.
Right.
I think if they can figure that out, I think the rest is gravy.
Yeah, absolutely.
John, talk about your agency for a second. Talk about where you guys are, what you do, what states you work in. Just talk a little bit about that. If anyone was listening to the podcast and they just kind of resonated with some stuff that you were saying and they wanted to reach out with you, talk about your agency for a second.
The name of my agency is JBA Insurance Brokers. We are based in Marlton, New Jersey, which is just outside Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We primarily do both supplements and Med Advantage plans, and we are contracted with various carriers. I am licensed in the states of New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, South Carolina, Florida, and soon to be Texas. And I've expanded my range because I have a lot of customers here who move to like South Carolina and Florida, and then their wife becomes Medicare eligible. And so they call me and say, hey, my wife's turning 65. We need to get her on Medicare. So then I get licensed in those states. Mm-hmm. But we are accessible. We're right outside Philadelphia. The telephone number is 856-396-5054. My email address is johnb@jbainsurance.net. You can reach my Facebook page by going to www.facebook.com/John, JOHN, and then my last name, Billetdoux, BILLETDOUX. JBA/. And then, of course, our main website is www.jbainsurancebrokers.net.
Well, perfect. Thank you so much. Folks, if you're in one of those areas and, something John said just really reached out to you, just really resonated with you, I encourage you to give him a call. Because there's not enough good quality brokers out there that have the integrity that this man has. And John, thank you so much for coming on. Thanks for spending the time.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Hey, the pleasure's all mine. Folks, thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will be back with another episode on Saturday. Don't go anywhere.